I now cover the more typically used, especially for larger firms, capital budgeting techniques. So the one that has the most clout, in my opinion, from a financial theory perspective is net present value. This will be equal to NPV, parentheses, the rate is the required return, comma, your first value is the total after tax savings, and actually we already did our cash flows here listed out. So I'm just going to highlight those. Plus, anytime you have a period zero cash flow, it's going to go on the outside of the NPV function. The NPV function starts discounting immediately, so it assumes that first period cash flow. So anything that happens beforehand goes on the outside, and you'll get, this is dollars, you'll get 34,610.86. To calculate something called the Profitability Index, which is a reference to 1. So just going back, NPV, if it's positive, you accept the project. Profitability Index is relative to 1, so you accept any project greater than 1. To calculate this will be the NPV function again. So B7, comma, the D20 to D24. And then instead of adding that initial outlay, I will now divide by it. So I'll divide by the initial outlay in B19, and we get 1.55. The next one is the internal rate of return. For this one, you'll do equal IRR. You'll highlight the values. The guess is optional. If you don't guess, Excel attempts to start figuring out from a baseline of 10%. We won't need that in this problem because this is a normal or conventional cash flow stream where you have one negative, everything else is positive. Another example of a conventional cash flow stream is anything where the sign just changes once. So like maybe if I started with a positive and then had all negatives, if the cash flow sign changes, that's non-conventional, and there's a potential problem with using IRR. So you can see in this example that's 35% or 34.92%. The last one that attempts to get rid of some issues with the internal rate of return, such as investing at that rate, because that would be quite a high reinvestment rate based on the assumption, because IRR is setting the NPV cash flows, all that to 0. So this is the interest rate such that the cash flows net present value are 0. So if you have this is, you can also call this a hurdle rate. So as long as you require, which in this case is 15%, if you require any rate of return that's less than the IRR, you accept. The modified internal rate of return kind of gets rid of that reinvestment assumption and is a little bit more conservative. So for this one, the MIRR function, you'll highlight all the values, and then you have to put in two rates for the financial rate and the reinvestment rate. In this case, we're just going to keep them the same at 15%. So you can see in this example that gets you 25.60%. A little bit more conservative hurdle rate, but it still follows that given our required return is 15%, we would accept the project. So given all of our capital budgeting techniques here and our rules, it looks like for the most part this would be a pretty good project to accept. It would be a good idea to replace the machine with a new one.